Housing crisis remains front and centre this morning. So what is the solution? So many proposals flying around. Monique Ryan is the federal independent member for Kooyong. She joins us now in the studio. Monique, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael.
Your electorate comprises some of the areas Jacinta Allen's talking about in terms of these activity hubs, high-rise apartment blocks around train stations in areas like Toorak. What is wrong with that if it means more young Australians get access to the housing market?
We absolutely need to get more Australians access to the housing market. We are in a housing crisis which has been 3 decades in the making, and I would put the blame for that at the foot of both of the major political parties in Australia. They haven't planned for housing, and we are seeing that 30, 40, 50-year-olds can't get into the housing market. They can't buy a home. Last week we saw that we have a historically low birth rate. We have to find housing for Australians. It's incredibly important. And people from my part of the world are very aware of that. We want our kids to be able to buy homes and live less than 90 minutes away from us. We want to be able to see our grandchildren. We want the next generation to have the opportunities that we've had. And so I'm very supportive of all levels of government getting together and working effectively to address the housing crisis in this country.
You're quoted this morning as saying that some of these buildings could be too tall, too ugly and slow to be delivered. So you do have a problem with what the government's proposing.
Well, I guess I think that's a sliver of what I said to the Fin Review yesterday, which is that the announcement yesterday, this weekend from the Premier, was for 9 massive new developments just in the electorate of Kooyong. It's huge. And these could be up to 20 storeys high. Of course, that's going to cause some concern from people who live in the area who've chosen to live there because it's a beautiful part of the world.
But the argument would be why shouldn't the people of Toorak, like the west of Melbourne, the western suburbs of Sydney, play their part in helping solve the housing crisis?
Absolutely, and people are really keen to. And I think putting new developments on top of the transport lines is a really good option. But I guess what people need to have is some certainty that we're still going to be able to get kids into primary schools and secondary schools in the area, that we're not going to lose all the green spaces and amenities that are the reason why we've chosen to live there in the first place. So what we're saying is, look, it would be great to have some detail about that. We're not saying that we don't want it. I think people from my part of the world are welcoming it. We'd also like some assurances from the government that they're going to include social and affordable housing in these developments. We really don't have any detail as yet, and that's the stuff that's missing at this point.
The Premier says, from her perspective, there could be a bit of NIMBYism in some of the opposition you're potentially expressing.
Yeah, of course, and that's politics. The Premier's playing politics with this. You know, she's trying to create a point of difference. I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is assuring that the people who live in Kooyong, Hawthorn, Kew, Canterbury, Camberwell, that these developments are going to be put in a way which is sensitive and sustainable, that they're going to be well designed, that they're going to be delivered on time, and that we will retain the character of the suburbs in which we've chosen to live while welcoming, hopefully, hundreds of thousands of more people into the area.
Now, the federal opposition over the weekend has unveiled their $5 billion plan to provide infrastructure for housing developments, water, sewerage, power. What do you make of that plan?
Well, I think you put the nail on the head there, Michael. There's no plan for housing in that plan.
Well, they say 500,000 homes would be built as part of the plan eventually.
Well, there's $5 billion, which is for infrastructure. It's for roads, it's for sewerage, it's for power. But the young people who go into these greenfields areas up to 90 minutes away from the cities won't have any assurances that they'll have primary schools, secondary schools, houses, childcare, aged care. And Mr Dutton has also suggested that we're going to basically put in place for that housing 10-year-old housing standards. So we're saying to the young people of Australia that you can go and live in hot boxes 90 minutes from the city. You'll pay more for public transport and you'll pay more for council rates because they're new and undeveloped areas. And that's good enough for you. I don't think that's good enough. Actually, I would much, much prefer sensitive, sustainable developments within the suburbs, medium density housing in areas like Kooyong, where young people can choose to live can have the opportunity to live at the same standard of living as their parents. That's much preferable.
We'll see where the housing debate leads us. Heading towards the next election, it was a red letter day for independents over the weekend. We had 2 independents return to the ACT Assembly for the first time in 20 years. Jackie Scrooby, in a New South Wales state by-election, won a blue ribbon seat in the northern beaches of Sydney. Does that make you feel a bit more comfortable as we head towards the federal election, retaining seats like Kooyong?
I think we saw in the last federal election that almost a third of Australians did not vote for the major parties. And I don't think that they've seen anything since that time that's changed their minds. And I think that people are seeing that independents can hold the governments to account at all levels of government. And we play an important role, that we're pragmatic and we're centrist and we contribute. And the results from the elections over the weekend reflected that.
Monique Ryan, really appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Michael.
Monique Ryan there, the member for the seat of Kooyong. Now, Labor has indeed